Hello, everyone, and happy Thursday, and welcome to the third webinar in our agency series today. My name is Liana, and I am the community coordinator on the Educate team here at Ceros. Joined with me, I have Adam and Dina, who will be our lovely panelists for today's webinar. I'll let them introduce themselves very shortly. And as they go through the webinar today, you can send any questions to the Q&A box, and we'll answer them all at the end. But with that being said, I will hand it over to you two.
Yeah, Liana, thanks very much. And Dana, thanks for joining. I'm just going to share my screen. You see that okay? Maybe not.
Yeah, I didn't see anything up, Adam.
I'll try that one more time. While I'm getting that all sorted, I guess, Dana, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. It is Mercury's in retrograde. I feel like it's always in retrograde these days. Thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. My name is Dana Harder. I am one of the co-founders and co-owners of Unreal Digital Group. We are a full-service demand agency, really focused on the B2B, primarily B2B tech space. So thank you so much for having me today.
No problem at all. And my name's Adam Sangster. I run the channel team over here at Ceros. That's all of our agency, publishing, and media partners. So I'm really, Dana, going to give the mic over to you today and hear a little bit more about your team and what you're up to. And now that I've finally got the screen share working, we should be able to rock and roll. So a little bit about what we're going to cover today. We're really going to try and run the full gamut of how UDG and Ceros have been working together over the past 12 months, how you've operationalized, how you've got buy-in from the team on your side, and talk a little bit about how you're using Ceros internally as well as externally for clients. So any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end of the webinar. I would say this has been 12 months since we've been working together. We've been super impressed just by the way you've been operationalizing Ceros. You've done a number of campaigns 0 to 40 in 12 months is quite impressive. So let's start with what drove you to interactive, or what made you choose Ceros. Let's start with the basics.
Yeah, that sounds great. So as I mentioned, we're a full service demand gen agency, but more than 50% of our business really comes from content creation. And I think for us, when my business partner and I started the agency 5 years ago, I mean, interactive was already super hot and we were seeing the trend towards it. But I think, even more so over the last 12 to 18 months, it's becoming really apparent that even in the B2B space, this gap that we sometimes see between B2C and B2B in terms of where we are in our marketing tactics and in the way that we go to market is starting to close. And we're being asked to create content that's much more aligned to the same type of content we all consume in our personal lives. And so, that means they want shorter, they want more visual. Nobody really wants static 2,000 word ebooks anymore. And I don't want to say they're completely gone, they're still there, but we're definitely seeing the push towards this. And so interactive content was one way that Carrie and I saw we could add something new to the tool bag for our clients and be able to start to build a product offering with this more visual, more interactive engagement. And for us, it was a no-brainer to use Ceros. I had used it at a previous agency. And, I think some of the benefits for us when we started to go down this path and decide to add this was, Ceros, we knew, we have the agency program. And for those on this call, I think we all understand as agencies, what happens often for agencies is if there isn't a license or the tech partner doesn't understand how we have to go to market, often we're stuck with a tool where we can't expand it across all of our clients. So the fact that Ceros has a way for us to do all of these different campaigns and engagements with all different clients, and we're not restricted. We don't need multiple licenses. We don't need to set all of these different platforms up to come to what we need, or it really helps us out. And so that was a huge win for us. The other, I think, thing for us when we're looking at a tool is our standard designers on our team are able to use Ceros. So that is a big deal for us. I think, we're a boutique agency, around 40 people. And so we needed to be able to upskill the team pretty quickly. And this was a no-brainer for us because we knew it would be easy to get the team on board.
Yeah, that's really helpful context. And the one of the things that's in my brain is get an idea of is it you proactively spinning up those new products and going to market? Is it clients coming to you and saying like we want to elevate? How do those two things kind of overlap, or is it one or the other?
Yeah, I think it's actually both. So I think where we've seen growth, it's a couple of ways. I think one is we've just got clients asking every day, what's new? What do you have that's new? Which is always humorous to us in marketing. And I'm sure people on this call can relate because at the end of the day, the tactics that we have to offer clients don't change drastically, right? But I think for us to be able to say that we actually do have a new offering, we've got this new interactive tool that we can use that just makes your content more engaging. I think is one way. It's really piqued a lot of interest. We have a lot of clients who are like, yes, I'd love to use that. Let's try that out. And then on the other side, I think for us, we've kind of incorporated it into our demand gen model. And so when clients are working on us more full service versus just content creation, we've kind of made a Ceros Hub the cornerstone of our campaign model. So all the campaigns that we're running, assuming, sales goes the way that we want it to, there's a Ceros Hub where everything is kind of landing to is where we've got a diagram that shows it. And it's kind of our process of how we go to market with our demand gen services.
Yeah, because we see a lot of the time this kind of chicken and egg with the agency realm of we want to do really great interactive stuff, and it's like, but we want to pass the cost through to clients, so we need to that sell before buying is what we see. But it sounded like you already had a client base that had appetite for interactive, and that helped you get into the game a little bit faster.
Definitely. I also think the sales team was really excited about this. I mean, we were lucky enough that one of our sales people had some experience with Ceros, so they were like eager to get things going with it, and was able to call their clients and say, look, we've got Ceros. And then I think just the excitement around it, and something new, they're pushing it as well. So I really think it's both. I think the great thing is the way that you guys have set up the model is, I mean, we've gone really quickly, I know, through ours, and we've added more and we've grown our contract with you all, but I didn't feel at the beginning this need that I had to put a massive upfront cost. Like, I mean, working with you all, I thought it was really reasonable in the packages we were able to start with and to be able to expand. So I feel like as an agency owner, I didn't feel like there was this massive out of pocket upfront investment, and then I'm panicking on how I'm going to regain those costs. So I think the way that you guys have set it up, at least from my perspective, works really well for us.
Okay, perfect. And it brings us up to the organizational expansion, which I guess could mean a lot of different things. But what we're looking at here is, just when you went, okay, we want to do interactive, we think we've got the right partner in Ceros, everything that you just said about reducing risk so you don't have massive cost on your balance sheet just in case you don't use the technology makes a lot of sense. But we normally have this kind of three-pronged attack. Obviously, we have leaders of the agency like yourself, then we have a look at strategy, creative, commercial. When we look at those three personas, how much kind of selling into the organization to get that expansion across those teams did you have to do?
Yeah, I mean, for us, there was some buy-in already because people were familiar with the tool. But I think where the real value came in for us, and again, assuming many agencies are in the same boat that we are, is, there's certain people that were relying on contractors, like video, or, the other way we were doing interactive before Ceros was custom coding, which is really labor intensive. It's time consuming. We don't have tons of those resources on staff. And it was really so cost prohibitive for us. We were often pricing ourselves out of deals with interactive. And so for us, Ceros has kind of come in and allowed us to add this level of a visual tool at a price point that our clients are really good with. And we're actually, it's really become a great profit center for us. So, I mean, the more Ceros we buy, that cost came down, but we built a model that went, hey, look, so this is the like, you know, if we're paying X amount or charging this amount to our clients for this is the most we're paying for Ceros. The end of the day, that's going to continue to come down the more we sell. And so then our profit margin slowly, you know, started to get built in. So we started with very little on the hard cost of the platform, and then made our money on our hours. And then slowly we're able to start to see that profit come in. And so for us, we're unable to do that with some of these other offerings and content, like video, for example. So like for us, we try and push people away from video to Ceros a little bit more, if it makes sense from the messaging, of course, but we feel we can accomplish a lot of the same projects with Ceros. And for us, because we can create it all internally now, it makes a lot of sense for us on the financial side. I think also for us, you know, this is, if you have established designers on your team and people know what they're doing, this is a really easy tool for a strong designer to learn. So all of our designers got to speed really quickly. We've had no issues there. So I think a couple of them might have been nervous at the beginning because they're like, well, we're not interactive people. We're not coders. We're not UX UI people. But, you know, once we got in there, they all like jumped in. And they love working in Ceros. They love getting you know, it's different for them. It's new. They're not designing a static PDF. So we found that, you know, the onboarding and the, how quickly they were able to get up to speed went really quickly for us. And then I think the third, like, really big win for us here is, you know, is on the reporting side. You know, the end of the day, it's hard to prove value to clients in an agency world. Like, we know what we have to do to get to show real numbers and how our campaigns are succeeding. The problem is very rarely do we get full access, or do we get to run something start to finish and be able to really show the measurements that we need to. So, you know, by Ceros allowing us to see some reporting on how people are consuming content, we use these a lot, as I said, for campaign hubs. It's given us another touch point for measurement and reporting into our campaigns that we didn't have before. Whereas, you know, someone downloads a PDF, it goes in somebody's download folder. We have no idea if anybody ever looks at the content. And this just really helps us along. It's also a huge selling point for us when we're showing, we're like, hey, we can see how people consumed your content, what's working, what's not, how maybe we should, you know, tweak the content. Maybe, you know, nobody's getting past a certain page. Maybe it's too long. So, you know, that's opened a different door, and our clients love that because they can start to show some value in their content and campaign investment.
Yeah, no, I really lean into the data side. I mean, it's great being able to, you know, iterate quickly, and be able to go and sit with the client and give them tangible results on what could be different or what's working really well. And I think you mentioned boutique agency of about 40 people. How many people would you say? How many people would you say it takes to get a Ceros piece off the ground?
So it depends, I think, on the project, but at the most, it's usually, you know, we have somebody on client services who's managing the program. Our model is on client services, we have content focused people or demand gen focused people. So usually it's a content focused person. So they really know how to drive a piece of content. So they kind of act in a little bit of a strategy role as well as kind of that client services component. And then, so one, the writer, the designer, and, you know, sometimes if it's part of a larger program, there might be a full-on strategist on there. But if we're just doing a Ceros, I mean, it's designer, writer, and a client services person, and we're pushing it through. So it literally, from our perspective, once we got onboarded, it is not adding tons more time to, like, compared to like a standard ebook. We spent a lot of time planning the hours up front, what it would take and how many we thought it was going to take early on. But we've really, the more we've done, you know, after getting 40 in your, you know, under your belt, we've got the process really dialed in, and we can move through them pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I think if you've really nailed the first one or two of the first you create, always going to be the longest. They're always going to be the most painful. And you also mentioned before, like, our designers weren't animators. And I find that it normally takes that maybe 30 to 60 day window for people to get the UI is super simple, but just to get comfortable with, if I'm used to doing static flat pack PDF or
Yeah.
ebooks or data viz, whatever it might be, there is just that little step change. And then I think once that step change happens, the designers are actually the magic source. What I love, this is just the blank canvas. So you can push your magic source through the platform and make it interactive. So I'm always a big fan of, well, if you're going to do really great stuff on the creative side, you plug really great stuff in, you get really great stuff out the other side. So it's the blessing and the curse of blank canvases in that instance.
And
wow, that was
the bigger challenge, I think, for us really was on the writing and the strategist side is getting them to think interactive first, right? So I think the first few that we make mistakes on we're writing, like if we're doing a long form Ceros that might have a few more words and maybe it's not, or we're doing an infographic, but the idea being that they were writing for static. And so I think that piece took the mind shift of, hey, we can tell this story more visually. We can have things come in. You can take them down a journey. And so I think getting them out of that mindset, we do a fair amount of work where clients like take this static content and make it, an interactive piece in Ceros. And I think, that's a really good exercise at the beginning because that piece is already done. So they're reimagining it. But when you start from scratch, I think there was just a small learning curve on, hey, I don't have these same boundaries and walls as I did when I'm doing this for a static piece of content. So that I think was our biggest hurdle. But again, once they got into it, they get pretty excited about it because you can just do so much more with it.
Yeah. And would you say that the one of the challenges was convincing the copywriters that less words is okay because you've got a bit more of a visual? Yeah.
Yeah, but isn't that always the case? I think it's in B2B, we have this stigma for sure that the more words is better. And so I think to continue to bring that word count down, more visual, how do we tell the story different? I mean, designers are always for it, right? Less words are better. But yeah.
Yeah, but as you say, particularly in the B2B space, and I know some of the the enterprise clients you work with, but I think having the data part is what's interesting to me. If you can show, the content could be, let's say, smaller in size, copy wise, and it's quite a complicated value proposition, but the imagery and the animation brings to the understanding of the piece, and you can digest that quickly and easily. If you don't have the data to back that up, then that's really difficult. So it aligns very nicely with what you're saying about data. And I'm glad the copywriters and the designers are all aligned now.
Yes, they're all on board now.
And then the internal buy and bringing the commercial team on board. So what do we mean by this? So I would say, our team speaks to hundreds of agencies each year, and looking at that again, that three-pronged attack of strategist, commercial, creatives. We get the strategists on board pretty quickly. We get the commercial teams on pretty quickly, and then there's okay. Now we need to go out to market. Now whether that's proactive or reactive, that's when the chicken and egg scenario comes in a little bit. It's like, how do we get the commercial team on board? What's the best way of doing that? I know you had a leg up because you had somebody that already sold Ceros, and that person is a superstar on your side. But any advice to agencies on how best to do that kind of that go to market, bring commercial team closer, and get them excited?
Yeah, I think definitely one of the ways we did it is definitely by creating some of our own internal tools, right, with use of the tool and showing them. So they had something out of the gate to go with. I mean, Ceros has incredible examples on their website to show and to get them excited. But I think when they saw a few pieces with their own brand and were like, hey, at least out of the gate, you have something to show for it. And this is what we can do. I think for our commercial team, and I don't know how all agencies are done, but if we have pass-through costs, like meaning, we've got a lot of hard costs against something, they don't always get commission on that. So the one thing about Ceros is it's kind of all internal that we're doing it. So it made them excited that maybe we move away from some of the other formats that are really like, at the end of the day, they don't make as much off of as sales teams. So that's always incentivizing, I think, for a salesperson when their commission is could potentially go up. But I think at the end of the day, for them, it was really about creating some excitement around this new offering. And so, really our plan was really talking about it as much as we could with clients, showing the samples. We did a couple blogs on it. And then, how can we use it? We're currently creating it right now is kind of, I've got our art director working on a template for basically an ABM hub for our sales team that they can easily switch out samples. So really personalized for some accounts we're trying to expand into globally, and just being able to highlight some of the content. So I think what we find is the more we use it as a sample and the more we use it, and then the clients see it, they're like, oh, I want to do that. What's, I think, crazy about Ceros when you have a tool like that's so cool is most people see it and want it. The question just becomes, it's a little higher price point content than our static. It's right in line with video for us, and I think they feel like they're getting a little more sometimes on it. So I think it has not been a hard sale for us compared to some of the other things we bring in. People want it. They see it. It does cool things. They understand the value of it really quickly. It's just more about getting the message out and creating the excitement, I think.
Yeah, that element of higher commission on premium outputs, is a huge win on our media side of the business. With traditional publishers, we see incentivized salespeople to do premium activations on a regular basis, and it's interesting to hear. It's more because better margins for you, which means you're not outsourcing. Okay, yeah, that's I appreciate the candor. That's really interesting in the information. And we will have a look at two different experiences. We'll have a look at an internal piece and an external piece that you've kindly been able to share with us. We'll talk a little bit about client success. But I guess let's say nothing about Ceros. You're in an agency. It's just being onboarded. What advice, maybe top 3 or 4 points where you're like, this is, if I didn't know anything and I know what I know now, this is the advice I would give to me 12 months ago.
Yeah, I think one is, if you're not thinking about how you do interactive in your agency, you're behind, right? I think at the end of the day, with AI coming into play, with I'm sure most of the agencies have similar fears to what we all have as agencies. Is AI going to start taking over our content writing, our content development, and how do we play nice with that? And so the more that you can diversify your content offerings, the more you can provide something that's different and unique, and coming to the table with this more visual idea, I think is going to be helpful. So I think if you're not thinking about it, you're probably a little bit behind the 8 ball. How that comes to market for your agency is going to be, dependent on your client base and all of that, of course. But I think this is where it's going. At some point, PDFs are going to go away, or, they're, I'm sure Adobe doesn't want me to say that. But I think at the end of the day, we're going to see less and less of the static, and Gen AI tools and discoverability. It's all pushing us this way, right? Content has to be on the web. It has to be web-based. It has to be in tools. This idea of static nature content is just not going to be viable in a few years. So I think how you get there is it's time to start thinking about it. And then I think, look for ways to layer it in to your current offering. Yes, we offer it as standalone content. We do a lot of content creation, but for us, what started to really take off is by embedding it in some of our demand gen services, kind of a mandatory offering, right? So it's like, if you're buying this service from us, this is the center or core of that service. And we have a reason for it, right? It provides us with the data and the reporting that we can't get elsewhere. It gives us a centralized place to keep all the content for us to kind of have access to the back end and see when maybe we can't always have access to all the tech stack or system of our clients. So, I think about ways for you that this layers in is not just a standalone offering, but it's like part of a bigger service. And then you kind of just don't budge on it, right? This is our go-to-market strategy, or this is what works for us. We do this for a reason. And we believe by doing so, you're going to see the benefits of it. So, and then I think lastly is we've also found ways just to wrap, as an agency, we're all about our services, right? And so we've got quarterly maintenance plans we wrap around these. So everybody wants to update. I mean, that's also, we didn't even get into one of the selling points here is I can update this content much faster. So when you start doing this, all of a sudden you're like, well, wait, how long are we going to do reporting for free, right? Like it's part of that. So we say 90 days, we'll send you reports. After that, you have to do some sort of maintenance contract with us where if you're continuing using it, we'll send you the reports. And then, in that pricing, you get, a quarterly update to, maybe up to 10, 15% in copy or design, we can tweak it. So think about then other ways around those Ceros you sell that you can add just some additional service costs to it to keep it up. And it's funny, we just didn't think about some of these. We started out and, client services is like, well, how long are we supposed to do reporting for? And we were like, I don't know, that's a good question. So maybe we should talk about that and what's realistic. And so I think, thinking through that, but, in doing so, it's kind of led us to some additional service points and additional revenue that we didn't consider when we first did it.
Yeah, those are some really good points, and actually in the webinar that we had last week, like just the change order, some things you don't think about in the traditional workflow of creating content with design and developers. That change order going from design to developer backwards and forwards, whereas in Ceros they're very agile. Being able to do those change orders, it never really dawned on me that was the case because we've always used Ceros internally, and I love the way that you're using Ceros. We say use Ceros to sell Ceros. You're saying, hey, use Interactive to sell Interactive, but it's the same method, which makes a lot of sense. So I know we're getting to a little bit towards time. So what I'll do is we will jump into client success stories. I'm just going to show you two pieces of content. The first one is one of your own pieces. I like the fact that you're talking about using Interactive to sell Interactive. I know you do concepts, mocks, thought starters. You have your own marketing. So talk to me a little bit about, I understand the concepts, I understand the mocks, I understand the pitches. This is more of a thought leadership piece. So maybe you can talk to us a little bit more about how you're using Ceros in this space.
Yeah, I think for us, it's looking for always, I think, to tell our stories of messages. Like when we look at our marketing plan and go to market for the year, what are the core product areas that we're going to focus on? And then, we're trying to build as much content in Ceros as we can around this, which, it's funny, as I'm sure many of us here our marketing often takes the backseat to our clients' marketing. So, but what's great is, again, I've got the resources internally to do this. And for us, it's about how can we create thought leadership? I mean, this is a roadmap. It's kind of like just an idea of how, place to kind of see how people stack up in their MOPS maturity. So thinking through different pieces of content, what I love about it personally, because my business partner and I are still heavily involved in the marketing, is it requires a lot less copy. So, in an internal perspective, I don't need to have our writers writing tons of copy and we can get through it. And so it's a little bit easier. Of course, the heavier lift is on the designer, but it would have been anyways, right? They would have had to design the ebook, probably just doing it interactive. I think the other two areas I think that come in with the second sample is how we're seeing it with client usage. So for us, we do a lot of work with enterprise clients in their channel and partner marketing. And so one of the things we've discovered is that channel marketers are often the redheaded stepchild of an organization. And so what happens is they don't have the same access to the tech stacks and the technologies that corporate has. And so they're always asking us for workarounds, which are always like, can we do it? Should we be doing it? And so Ceros has given us an opportunity for them to, this is a great piece with an AI company, sustainability company. They're doing really cool things. They really needed something that could be visual in nature, but what we're being asked is, hey, we've got to do these things. Can you host it outside of my website? Because I can't get it on the website. And B, I need something that is in this space, especially AI, super visual, because it's really complex to tell my story. And second off, our POV and our messaging and everything is changing constantly. AI companies, I mean, like what they're saying one week, it's totally different the next, just because of the fast, changing nature of the space. And so we're finding Ceros to play really well in this space. I mean, like we'll say we're done, and a week later, they're like, we've kind of changed our positioning here. Can we make some edits? And so it's so easy to do in Ceros. And so that's been really useful in kind of this channel space, especially in the AI. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we could do another 3 hours on AI and what that means.
Yeah,
We'll
for
probably
sure.
save that to another one. But lastly, we've got a couple of minutes. Questions, final thoughts. We'll see if we've got enough time to squeeze some of those in. So, Liana, you let us know if there's any questions that we need to field.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you both so much for walking us through that webinar. And Dana, I loved hearing how your team has adapted Theros and really gotten to use it. We have a couple really good questions here. The first is from Brett in the chat, and this one's for you, Dana. It says, what made you choose Theros versus other platforms such as In5?
Yeah, so, over the years, I've tried a lot of the interactive platforms. For us, I have to be honest, in the ones that we tried, it's ease of use. So what happens is with a lot of the tools you get in, and while there may be a WYSIWYG of some sort, we have found that there becomes a level of maybe coding or knowledge of HTML or something that is not as easy to use. So for us, it was definitely ease of use for our team to get in, and just our normal designers could get in and learn it. So I think that was one. And then the second thing for us was really an understanding of the agency model. We talk to a lot of MarTech companies who say they help agencies. Oh, we can work with agencies. And then when you start getting into conversations, they really don't have an agency offering. And we end up finding that those relationships tend to be more difficult for us because they just don't get what we're trying to do. And we feel like they're constantly trying to upsell us on something, or something that's like, oh, you can't do that with what you're doing, and you might have to buy a license for every client. And so for us, I think it was so easy for us to understand how we were going to do it. We can get in there, had a low upfront cost for us out of the gate. So those are the primary two reasons.
Awesome. I love that. Well, another question we have here is, what kind of analytics does Ceros provide that helps prove the value of interactive to your clients?
Adam, I'll let you take that from your perspective first.
Yeah, I wasn't sure who that was directed to. So I think that there's a wealth of analytics in Ceros. So, excuse me, there's out the box analytics. Think everything from custom events on a page to video completions to inbound links, outbound links. I mean, every click or touch event on different devices gets passed back through. Integrations with marketing automation platforms, HubSpot, Eloqua, Marketo. When you're talking about lead generation, having the Ceros be part of your lead scoring, being able to be part of a wider ecosystem. So the cool piece of interactive content isn't just stuck on its island. It can be part of a wider campaign. And then you add in the Universal Analytics, Adobe Analytics, integrations with GA, and you can pass some of that data back through, either your clients or your own data pipes, depending on how you report that back. So I guess the short answer is a wealth of analytics, all of them generally built around, traffic and engagement data.
Yeah. And I think for those on the call, what we've done is, so we've taken the core analytics that we can get as an agency for each client. And then my advice to the team always is, just don't give them the analytics. How can they use those analytics? So for us, it's about other content ideas. It's about, hey, maybe this piece isn't working, like I'd mentioned, it's, we can see where drop off is in assets, and if they're getting all the way through, if they're zooming in on certain aspects of it. So if we can make some conclusions, even just about that piece of content, like, hey, maybe there's a couple spin-off content because this piece was so well received, some shorter, some other assets. So I think for us, whenever we're showing in the reporting of the metrics, but then it's followed up by some, hey, and here's what we would do next with this information.
I love that. Yeah, not only just reading all of the analytics you can get, but also thinking forward and thinking ahead of what you're going to do with that.
Absolutely.
This next one is again for you, Dana, and it says, what were your clients' first response when you offered an interactive content offering?
Yeah, I mean, for us, guys, and I don't know if they were really excited about it. I think we were getting questions for things we didn't have a solution to, right? So I mentioned the hub for channel. Like I need a landing page or a hub that I can't get on my website, and we were exploring all possible solutions for how to do this outside of not putting it on their site. And so, like Ceros kind of I mean, it was an answer to problems or problems our clients were experiencing that we didn't have a solution for out of the get-go. So they were like ready for it. They were like, oh my gosh, this is a great solution. That's exactly what I'm looking for. But I think that, like, as I said, there's just not a lot of new in the space. And not that Ceros is new, but I mean, in B2B, we're not seeing a lot of interactive yet. You know, there's some companies who are embracing it a lot, and then there's some that just aren't there yet. And so I think there's still a feeling of newness here that, you know, when you bring it out, I mean, people were really excited about it. And I think it tends to be one of the easier things that we sell. They're like, yes, I'd much prefer it to be interactive than static, and it's worth the extra money for it once they see what the end result. You could have this or you could have this, and they're like, well, of course I want this, right? And even to the point that they might be willing to do less content to get a Ceros over, you know, doing maybe 3 assets of static, but then they get the Ceros, right? So it's been really well received from our clients.
And Dana, I know that I think that's the concept in the proof of concepts, the before and after static to interactive, that has been so valuable, as you say, in the B2B space. I mean, it's still great that you can be digital innovative in the B2B space by offering different interactive formats, but I think you definitely have to show the before and afters. We're seeing that a lot, like show it in the brand's guidelines, show them what can be done. So I think your team's done that particularly well.
Absolutely. I love that. Awesome. Just a couple more questions left here. Adam, this next one is for you. And that is, which agencies do you think are a good fit for Ceros?
Yeah, this is a really good question because we get asked this all the time because we play all the way through SMB to mid market, all the way to enterprise, think different holding companies, the WPPs, the Publicis, the Omnicoms of this world. And Dana, you answered the question, extremely well. We've got 3 people, the work on Ceros to get a Ceros Interactive out the door. And I think that gives you a really good idea of how you can scale this. Whether you're, an SMB, depending on what your budgets look like, to mid-market, all the way to some of the big holding companies. 3 people, around I wouldn't put a time frame on this because it's how long it's a piece of string to get a Ceros experience out the door, depending on what the project is. But I think that's a really good barometer to have. And anybody that's asking this question, if they go to the webinar previous to this one, we spoke about resources, workflows, and that will give you a really good idea. So I guess the short answer to this question is, we're running the gamut at the moment. We've got some SMBs using us. We've got some, boutiques like Dana and Co that are really crushing it. And then, we've got some large, holding company enterprise that are using us. I think the thing is that the special sauce is always the creative. And I think Ceros just lets the creatives be creative. It doesn't restrict creatives. Liberating creativity with technology is what we're about. So giving that creative freedom, if you've got good designers, you've got good ideas, and you want creative freedom, I think that's the answer to the question.
Awesome. And then our last question here could be answered by either of you, both of you. And that is, what are the more popular types of content that your clients seem to gravitate towards?
So for us, landing pages and hubs have been kind of a big thing for us, like campaign hubs. Like, don't think like a landing page with we're offering one piece of content, but some sort of campaign hub. Infographics, of course, like, why would we do a static when we can do interactive? And oddly enough, I mean, people are still wanting to put larger pieces. So like, ebooks, things like that. the other big one for us is research studies. And so I think, where there's lots of visuals and we can build graphics on charts, graphs, things of that nature. We have one client right now that does a yearly research report with us. And so we're getting ready to start working on next year's. And, we're talking about doing it all Ceros and then even doing all the vertical slices in Ceros. So it's like that just becomes, we can build things really cool instead of, the static, 25-page PDF that we would do there. So it's still going to be long, but I think it provides an easier way for our reader to consume it than in a PDF.
Love
Yeah,
that.
the only thing I would add on top of that on the B2C side, we're seeing quite a bit of gamification. We're seeing kind of a choose your own adventure, with some logic baked in, which I think will, B2B, as you mentioned at the start of the webinar, getting a little bit closer to B2C. How people are engaging with that content. We're definitely seeing a little bit of that. But I'd say, yeah, interactive quizzes, gamification, and choose your own adventure is something we're seeing more on the B2C side, which no doubt B2B will catch up with pretty quickly.
Awesome. And just echoing what Adrian said in the chat, that the audience is definitely a big part of content creation. So I really think, like you both said, you can go interactive with so many different types of content. People typically think, oh, maybe for our longer PDFs and stuff like that, but you can really, create any type of that interactive content.
Yeah. I mean, I think what Adrian's saying, which is so important, I say this to my team all the time, is look, at the end of the day, they're like, what's the best content formats for X? It's like, it's not about the format. It's about what's the right messaging for the audience. And then what's the best way to deliver that message? And, is it more of a short form? Is it a long form? I mean, it's really about message first, and then making sure that the format delivers that message correctly. So.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much again, Dana, for joining us for this webinar today, and Adam for walking us through this as well. I absolutely love seeing those examples, again, hearing all of the positive feedback you have for Ceros and how your team is using the studio and the tools, Dana. And thank you all who have attended and joined our webinar today. Before we do wrap up, I just wanted to quickly mention that we do have a new referral program we've started, where you can refer either colleagues or friends at other companies who have not yet used any of the tools in their Ceros suite. And just to give you some more background on this initiative, this was really created and inspired by all of the growth that we've seen. And as a thank you to all of our loyal customers like yourself, Dana, and just spreading the word and introducing Ceros. So as you probably all know by now, we love growing the Ceros community that we've built, and we are excited to expand it with your referrals. So I'll send a link in our Zoom chat window where you can find that referral page. And again, thank you all so much for joining our webinar today. I hope to see you in our future webinars, and I hope you have a great rest of your Thursdays.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
everyone.
guys.
Take care.
Bye.